Against Dallas, they weren't going to be able to keep up. They weren't going to be able to keep up because they don't have.
The 49ers keep up.
Yeah, but Jody, what is your obsession with the Eagles are the same as the 49ers, or the 49ers are the same as the Rams?
My obsession is that Dak Prescott isn't Tom Brady. Ever. Never has been, never will be. And if you got the choice to face one out of the two, I pick Dak Prescott 100 out of 100 times.
And so do I. So do I. But the quarterback is not out there by himself. You know that. Come on, that is... Why do we play these games?
Winding off season, which we will be here for with you all the way up until the start of next football season, which seems like about 2.5 years away, but it's actually only 9 months, folks. But you get your Mac and Mac guys and plenty of it over the next 9 months leading up to the Eagles' first game. J-Mac, other than the game, how was your trip to Tampa?
Well, the game was my trip to Tampa. I was in and out, probably there, 36 hours. So didn't get much to see. Woke up to a tornado warning, torrential downpours. And then by game time, it was cleared up and at times even sunny, windy. But everything was fine from a weather standpoint. And then I was back out. But Tampa's very nice. Anybody who's been down there realizes how nice that area is. And there's a bunch of Phillies fans from Clearwater and all that kind of stuff. So I'll tell you what, my hotel was filled with Eagles fans, and they were very excited Sunday morning.
Understood. So yesterday, it was Sunday night on my CBS show, I had J.C. Allen on, who we had on last week leading up to the game. And I asked him to give me a guesstimate of how many Eagle fans were in the stadium on Sunday. And he put it at about 25%. He thought it was 3-1 Buck fans to Eagle fans. I got an Eagle fan on the phone afterwards who said, no way, it was half Eagle Stadium. I'm an Eagle. I drove down. JC is a guy I like, I trust. I don't think he was underestimating, and an Eagle fan might have seen it through Eagle-colored glasses. So give me an objective judgment, if you even took the time to bother to try and evaluate it from the press box. What would you say the percentage of the breakdown was in the stand?
I would say JC is about right, 25, 30, 35 at the most. Which is a lot for
not 25 is not bad. 35 is borderline impressive
for a team that's so good and is the reigning Super Bowl champion. So it's not as easy to get in there as it is some other cities, especially for a playoff game. So a lot of Eagles fans managed to find their way in, but it's definitely not a takeover situation by any stretch of the imagination. When the Eagles came out, a lot of times in stadiums you hear just cheers. Atlanta in the season opener, Detroit by that point was a disaster and a winless team, and just it was all cheers. Now you heard significant boos when the Eagles took the field, and they did not. The fans were not able to take over the stadium, but they got more in than most teams. There's certain teams, Pittsburgh, Green Bay, Dallas, obviously. Eagles are in that sort of category.
They travel very well. And the reason that I wanted someone's opinion from down at the stadium, because usually you can get a pretty good guesstimate just watching the game at home on your TV. The Eagle fans never really had much to cheer about. That before you blinked, it was 7-0, and you blinked again, and it was 14-0, and it kind of had them sitting on their hands. So I couldn't get a true read on it. That's why I asked J.C. Allen and now you as to how many Eagle fans were actually in the house. The other thing, you mentioned about the wind. Rain. What the hell happened to the rain? It was supposed to rain before the game and maybe into the game. Never got a drop. So we know that's the case. How big a factor was the wind?
I think it was a little bit of a factor for both teams. It was pretty significant. Even Tom Brady early didn't look his normal accurate self. A couple off kilter throws that would typically be right on the mark, and then from Jalen's perspective, yeah, I mean the accuracy wasn't there. So we talked about it upcoming in the week, and I mentioned how good quarterbacks, and even Nick Sirianni said it Friday. He said rain, because we talked about it with the Eagles running game. That helps the offense. Cold, like I said with Aaron Rodgers, helps the offense. It's a little bit counterintuitive from what people think, but at least with good quarterbacks, it helps the offense. Wind, that's a different animal. Nobody wants to see wind if you're a quarterback. So I do think it affected things, but remember, it was gust. It was not sustained like it is in Buffalo, for instance, and we've seen that in games in the past. When it's sustained like that, then you have really issues. So, it's kind of hit and miss. But I thought it affected both quarterbacks at least a little bit, but not enough to obviously change the trajectory of the game.
Understood. And speaking of the trajectory of the game, I certainly discussed this yesterday with Jeff Kerr, did a good job filling in for you, but I even more so feel the need to discuss it now with you because you and I have discussed it plenty. And thank you very much for once again sending me my 12:58 p.m. text on the start of the game that the coin toss was had and the Philadelphia Eagles won. And as always, they deferred.
Yeah, I almost wish they lost because I knew what was coming if they won the toss. And I thought it was ironic because, Rodney McLeod, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox are out there for the coin toss typically, and they were again. And they kind of hesitated when they won the toss. And I think it wasn't on purpose. It was probably just one of those things where it's just second nature. But, I thought maybe it was subconscious saying, we better rethink this. And they didn't, and I didn't expect them to, which is why you should have hoped they lost the toss because Tampa Bay would have deferred and they would have got the football first. But they didn't, and it was a mistake. And I mentioned it on the post-game show from the coin toss. You can make a strong argument they lost the game on the coin toss.
Yes.
You can make a strong argument.
Oh, I'm ready to make that argument because you know how strongly I feel about this. I understand the analytics. And I asked you if anyone asked Sirianni about it after the game, and you said no, because we've already asked that question. He's already answered that question, and he's just going to give us the same answer that he's given us previously. And we only got so much time, so we got to ask other questions, which I get and I understand. But if it were me, I would ask the question because in this particular game, I think it played that big a role in the outcome of the game. That, any other game, you already answered the question. They go with the analytics, blah, 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 blah. And I get that. You've got other things to cover. This was that John McMullen is making an argument that the game was lost at the coin toss. So then, I want to ask a question about the coin toss. Why the hell did you defer again? Is there given no thought to the fact that, well, maybe we should look at the matchup. Maybe we should look at what we want to do. Maybe we should look at what they've got. Tom Brady, the GOAT, the greatest quarterback of all time. Maybe we should put analytics aside for a week and do what we think puts us in the best position to win. Nope. Just send them out there and tell them, guys, if we win the coin toss, we're going to defer. Fletcher, and maybe it was a subconscious thing that they hesitated before they said, we'll kick. John, it just annoys the snot out of me. And it's like one of the things that bothers me most about Nick Sirianni here, now that the season is over and done with. And we're only going to have 6 months to talk about this before they actually get together again. One of Sirianni's strong suits was into the season, 6-7 games, 2-5. Passing game isn't working. Trying to build everything around Jalen Hurts' strengths wasn't working. And Sirianni had the nerve. He had him hanging enough to go, well, wait a minute. We need to win games. And, we're more effective running the football than we are running these RPOs and leaving it in Jalen's hands. Let's get him under center. Let's just pound some people. I think my offensive line is that good that we can just dictate terms and run the football. I guarantee you it was flying in the face of what the organization wanted, that he had to go and tell them why I want to do this way, and we need to do this going forward. So he showed the fact that he took the control and the reins of this team. Why the hell won't he do the same thing with deferring and not deferring? Does he just not get it? Is Nick Sirianni that dumb?
It's interesting because I asked him the question before the game and after the game in a more layered approach, because I'm being kind of facetious on losing the game on the coin toss. That was part of it. To me, it was the start of just an indication of a poor plan. And before the game, I asked Nick, obviously you're focused on Todd Bowles and the defense and what he's going to do to you as an offensive coach, but how much does it factor in that the other side has Tom Brady and it's so explosive, and you have to realize things like you can't get behind. You can get behind against Garrett Gilbert, and you can say, all right, we can stick with our plan. We can come back if we do some things. But Tampa Bay is not going to stop coming. They're not going to stop scoring. So a team that's not equipped to play from behind against Tampa Bay, guess what? You shouldn't play from behind. You should do everything humanly possible to play from the lead. And the easiest way to do that is to take the football first.
Yep.
That's my biggest problem with the issue. And then after the game, I asked him the same thing. How much stress does that put on you as an offense when you're down 2 possessions? And he went to 17-0, and he claimed it didn't. And he started to feel the press, he said, at 24. Well, that's too late. That's way too stinking late.
Coach,
and guess what?
Further back than you're portraying.
Guess what? Even with all the garbage time numbers, even with the garbage time points, and that's been a theme against good teams. So throw out the box score. I don't care who threw for what, who scored, because all the Eagles' yardage was garbage. Garbage late when the game was 31-0 and it was over. It was decided. That's why I'm not a big stats guy, because 3 months from now, Jody, nobody's going to be talking about the context of that. And they'll point to what somebody did in garbage time and said, oh, he did something. No, they were destroyed. They were dismantled. It was a 31-0 game, and Tampa Bay took the foot off the gas and trying to get – they got a lot of people banged up. They got more people banged up in that game. But from a larger perspective of the head coach and not feeling the pressure, I don't think he was telling complete truth. You don't want to throw your team under the bus and said, yeah, I know it was over. But it was over at 17. And even that's what I was saying. What's the final score? 31-15. Even with the garbage time points, you don't get 17. So it's over. You can't come back against that particular. And that was 3 of the first 4 possessions, 17-0. Game's over.
Right. They just got handled, abused. The final score not indicative, because you're right. The Eagles scored the last 15 points. It was 31-0 at one point. Sorry, Coach, if it didn't dawn on you that, we're in trouble till it got to 24-0, shame on you. Come on. You're an NFL coach. You got to know better than that. And the thing,
again, I didn't like the game plan at all from an offensive perspective. And I know a lot of people are killing Jonathan Gannon. I was texting some people. I can't even get the Gannon before I haven't been able to get past this offense. I don't understand. You brought up some of the early stuff. They were back to the early stuff with the wide receiver screens and the RPOs. And look, I don't think they could have run the ball anyway, because Todd Bowles came into this game and said, I'm going to stack this stinking box and I'm going to force you to throw the football. And if you could throw the football, I'll think about changing. Well, they couldn't throw the football, especially early. Dallas Goedert didn't get his first catch till 7 minutes was left in the second quarter. Devontae Smith, less than a minute to go in the second quarter before he caught the football for the first time. And again, the game was over by that point. He came out there and he put everybody on the line of scrimmage. You saw run blitzes. You saw slot blitzes to stop the run. It was sort of like the Joe Webb game. Antoine Winfield Sr. against Antoine Winfield Jr. Slot blitz, take away the mobile quarterback. They could not run the football because of how stacked everything was, and they were giving them – not only were they giving them man-to-man coverage with single high safety, but they were doing it with cornerbacks. They lost – Sean Murphy-Bunting wasn't playing. They were down 2 corners, and they said, guess what? You guys can't throw it. You guys can't beat us throwing the football. They challenged the Eagles, and the Eagles didn't try.
But let me jump in and ask you a question, John, because first play of the game, the Eagles' offensive line came up, and they seemed to almost be in a college stance. They had linemen without their hand in the dirt. They got their hands on their leg. It looked like a spread offense that they were coming out with. Now, you're right. If you go back and watch the film and you see what Tampa did, they put 8, sometimes 9 in the box and said, oh, yeah, we dare you to run against us. You can see that. The Eagles were ready to go to this spread offense before the ball was ever snapped on the first play. And they did it throughout the first series. That's the one that really bothers me. Because here's what I'm doing if I'm Nick Sirianni. They're a talented team. They're the Super Bowl champions. To me, they're a much more talented team. And I tried to tell everybody that last week, while everybody didn't necessarily listen to me. But still, if I'm coming into the playoffs and I've made my way into the playoffs and I went ahead and sat all my players in the final regular season game to get as healthy as possible to take a shot in the playoffs, I'm going mano a mano. I'm going to – if I got to hand the ball up between the tackles 3 straight times on the first possession, that may be the game. That could decide the game. Oh, except we deferred and we gave up a touchdown before we ever put our offense out there on the field. But I'm giving my 5 big guys up front the chance to just stone cold drive block. You can win the numbers. You can put a lot of guys in there, but I'm putting faith in my guys that we're going to be able to move the pile and we're going to be able to get a first down. And we're going to make a statement that, yes, we're here. It's the playoffs. You may be the favorite, but we're going to fight and we're going to do it our way. They didn't. They were trying to run some kind of offense that I hadn't seen in months here in Philadelphia. Did they think that much far ahead that we know what Tampa's going to do? And here's our response.
Well, that's
overstacking the box.
That's another interesting thing, Jody, because Nick took all week and said it's just another game. And that's what he preached. He didn't want anybody getting too excited. Well, the coaching staff didn't coach it like it was just another game. And they got out of what they wanted to do, but they did try to run the ball early. The first play was a successful play, and that was 7-yard run to Miles Sanders. And then the second play was the little short pass to Boston Scott, which was an extension of the run game, which got, I think, 1 yard. And then, so they're 3rd and 2. That's what you want. You want 3rd and short in the NFL. You should be able to convert, especially with a mobile quarterback. And then you saw the 8-man front in the blitz. I think it was Whitehead with the blitz. And they lose 3 yards on 3rd and 2. And you're off to the races again. You got to punt the football. You talk a lot. We talked a lot about the matchups, and you were saying this was a bad matchup. I was saying
this was the worst possible matchup.
Yeah, I was saying there was a worst possible matchup, and that team lost as well. The Dallas Cowboys. Look, they would have got spanked by the Dallas Cowboys as well. If you look, this league is about talent. If you look at, who's the best coach in football, I think we can all agree. I think we can all stipulate. He got destroyed this weekend. Mike Tomlin hasn't had a losing season in, I think, 15 years. Never had a losing season in 15 sticking years. For people who don't know, that's pretty good. He got destroyed this weekend. doesn't have the talent to compete with Kansas City. The Eagles didn't have the talent to compete with Green Bay. So even if they came out with a great game plan, they weren't going to win this football game. But they could have made it tougher. They could have made it tougher. But they're just not there from a talent perspective. I do think offensively the plan was terrible. I don't know what they were trying to accomplish. And guess what? They are a run-first team. They have been able to run against even top 10 run defenses. But nobody showed up like the Bucs showed up with 8 guys in the box. Nobody. And one of those 8, by the way, is Vita Vea. So you can talk about pushing people off the line of scrimmage all you want, and 4-time All-Pro or not. Jason Kelce is not pushing Vita Vea off the line of scrimmage. He can do some different things. He can pull, and he can get out in front, and he can do a lot of different things to help the Eagles win a football game. But one thing he can't do is push Vita Vea off the front. And nobody can. That's not an insult to Jason Kelce. Nobody can move that guy. Right, so they weren't, when they come out, the way they're playing defense, and remember, you don't have Tom Brady. What Tom Brady does is he goes to the line of scrimmage and he runs the game. He speeds it up. He slows it down. He sees what defense you're in. He checks to the right play. You have a very young quarterback, and this is not in a criticism of Jalen Hurts either. You're the one in his ear. You got to tell him there's 8 people in the box, single coverage. You got up to 15 seconds. You got to check to the right play. And, yeah, you got to throw against that. And that's what Todd Bowles was telling you. You are not going to run the football against us today. And we are going to do everything humanly possible. And they would have put 9 in the box if they had to. And they were going to stop that running game. And they did. And they said, pass the football. And the Eagles couldn't pass the football. But they didn't even try until it was too late.
But I do need to clarify this. Vita Vea was on the Bucs prior to the game as well, the week leading up to the game, right? And
yeah, but the difference is, Jody, you don't expect somebody to come out and say, we're going to essentially play goal line defense at the 25-yard line and say, that's rare. You know, if you're playing a usual 4-3 or 3, multiple fronts that Tampa Bay has, you could do some things with bits. You can do some things. You could double team, mate blocks, as Jordan Mailata calls them. Now everybody's got to account for everybody because they have more people than you have, which is the exact opposite of a typical run defense. And that was the difference. And the fact that, yeah, they knew Vita Vea was going to be there. They knew he was going to be a problem. Even Jason Kelce talked about it during the week. But in a typical way Tampa Bay plays, the same way they played in week 6, you can develop some things. You can do some things to try to get the football to try. And people have done that against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay was the 3rd-ranked run defense in the NFL after the season. And they were disappointed in that because they had been number 1 2 consecutive years, and they wanted to be number 1 3 consecutive years. Because they would have been the first team since the Williams wall, Pat Williams and Kevin Williams, to do that. They were disappointed in number 3. So he's an issue, but you can deal with it. You can't deal with it when there's 8 people in the box because you can't double team the guy.
Understood. But Todd Bowles is one of the more respected defensive coordinator. Vita Vea was there, and there was a hurdle the Eagles had to get over, and they didn't. Whether they were prepared for it or not, that's on their coaching staff. Vita Vea is as good as he is, and I think Tampa's run defense is good. Not as good as I wouldn't call them a top team, but a solid run defense, which, oh, by the way, they got healthy and got some guys back, which helped them this week, which I don't know if Eagle fans and certain media members like John McMullen factored in going in. And Tom Brady's Tom Brady. Did we not expect to get what we got from Tom Brady the same way you didn't expect the defense coordinator, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, to play 8 in the box right off the bat?
No, well, I certainly did. But when this speculation,
Well, then we're back to the question. Dak Prescott, Tom Brady. How did you possibly think that the Cowboys were a tougher matchup than the Bucks for the Eagles?
Because it had nothing to do with time. It had to do with the Cowboys playmaking. And I still believe the Cowboys would have destroyed the Eagles but it would have been a different type of game. It would have been 43.
They would have dominated the Eagles more than the Bucks did.
Well, they would have dominated them offensively more than the Bucks did. Remember, after the Bucks scored, when it was 14-0, and they got the ball again, and you remember they were driving the football again. Then the Eagles held them, and it became a 17-0 game. That nice little run. Singleton was good in pass coverage underneath Gronkowski. Then you had, I think it was a tackle for loss from Brian Kerrigan. Then you had a sack. They had 4 sacks in this game. By the way, if you told me they had 4 sacks against Tom Brady, I would have called you a lunatic. And they got 4 sacks in this game. And it was a really good defensive series, probably the best defensive series of the game for Philadelphia. And they held them to a field goal. It was 17-0. You said, all right, maybe there's a little bit of life in this team, but the offense can do anything. But it stayed 17-0 for a while. The defense settled down at least a bit, and it stayed 17-0 until Jalen Reagor's, which is another issue, his first pump up because he had 2. And obviously that gave Tampa Bay short field momentum, and they go in and score. And that was really the nail was already in the coffin, but that was the final nail. The defense actually played better than I expected them to play, holding them down for that period of time. But again, I took Tampa Bay to win by 11 points. I took them to win 33-22. What I kept saying is it is not a good matchup. It is a better matchup. I said the team I wanted was the Arizona Cardinals, who were an absolute embarrassment last night, as I expected. And by the way, offensively, the Cardinals remind me a lot of the Eagles because all they can do as far as the passing game, now they have better skill position players, but all they can do is off-schedule stuff, which you can't count on. It's Kyler Murray extending the play, throwing this, and that's great. Everybody loves when it's working against bad teams and highlights and everything. Wow, that's awesome. But you can't count on it. When it's 3rd and 7, you got to be able to run a stinking slant and get to the sticks and move the sticks. And that's what quarterbacks like Tom Brady do so well. But his ability to run the team at the line of scrimmage, that's what you need in the NFL to be consistently successful. And so many of these teams, and I don't know where the Eagles are with this, to be honest, but so many of these teams don't even want that. And this was always my biggest indictment of Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly didn't want Tom Brady, not that he could get him. Chip Kelly didn't want Peyton Manning, not that he could get him. He wanted to run everything himself.
Right.
And your ego's too big. Your ego's too big to not realize if you have Tom Brady, you better damn well utilize him. And look, they have a big advantage over everybody. But, people before the game, when I was telling you about the hotel, it's amazing the changing expectations. The Eagles fans, and it was all Eagles fans, they thought they were going to win this game. And I'm looking at them like they're nuts. Leonard Fournette's not here. He was a late scratch. That's going to affect, and we talk, obviously Chris Godwin is it. Could you imagine if Chris Godwin? Now, here's what I'm saying, Jody. Maybe I'll say it this way. If Chris Godwin was there, if Leonard Fournette was there, if Antonio Brown didn't go off the rails again and he was there, and Gronk was healthy, and everybody was healthy, they had their starting corners on the defensive side of the football. Levante David was able to come back, but he had been out, and he was a big impact. But everybody had been healthy. I would have said, yeah, Tampa Bay's probably even a worse matchup. But they weren't there. They weren't there. And imagine if they were there. Imagine how bad it would have been.
No. Did the guys filling in for the aforementioned injured players do okay? Yeah,
They did okay.
And that's something that you should have been able to see, and every other expert that we had here on Bird 365 should have been able to see. And I read this quote. I couldn't believe it. This was as big a mismatch as you were going to get. That comes from John McMullen in his Philly Boys column. Where's the comma, except the Cowboys, comma, in that statement? If you're clinging to the Cowboys were a worse matchup, how do you write this yesterday that this was the worst matchup you can get?
Because my column on Philly Boys was referencing the offensive plan. The offensive plan developed into the mismatch that it didn't have to be. Against Dallas, they weren't going to be able to keep up. They weren't going to be able to keep up because they don't have.
The 49ers keep up.
Yeah, but Jody, what is your obsession with the Eagles are the same as the 49ers, or the 49ers are the same as the Rams?
My obsession is that Dak Prescott isn't Tom Brady. Ever. Never has been, never will be. And if you got the choice to face one out of the two, I pick Dak Prescott 100 out of 100 times.
And so do I. So do I. But the quarterback is not out there by himself. You know that. Come on. That is, why do we play these games? You know, for all the great players in the history of the world, and whatever you want to call Tom Brady's 10 Super Bowls, 7 Super Bowl championships, right? How many years has he been playing now, Jody?
20 plus.
20 plus. That means his last game, even the greatest of all time, loses far more than he wins.
Come on.
Every single one.
We're talking about percentages here. What's his percentage of getting to the Super Bowl as compared to everybody else on the planet?
But Jody, you're boiling down an NFL game to the quarterback. And that is so cliched. That should be beneath you.
Except accurate. Look at the teams to the left, John. It's the best quarterbacks in the game. And Dak Prescott isn't one of them.
Well, you can not. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Dak Prescott's better than Tom Brady, but I'm going to sit in here and say Arturo Gotti
Cowboys are better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. On what planet?
If you watch, and I always use the fighting analogy. You know, there was a great documentary on what I think is the best time in boxing history. And that was the welterweights, middleweights with Hagler and Hearns and Leonard and Roberto Duran, and you even had some other ones mixed in there. Styles make fights. And, you know, Sugar Ray Leonard, for instance, had more trouble with Thomas Hearns than anybody because he couldn't figure out the style. Couldn't figure out the style of the particular fighter. Now, Hearns wasn't as good as Hagler, arguably wasn't as good as Duran, but he had the most trouble with Thomas Hearns. Styles make fights. I don't care about the San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers, for instance, have Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. Now, there's some up and there's some down. Now, if you're telling me, so by your definition, because Jimmy Garoppolo's going in to face Aaron Rodgers, he should have no chance whatsoever. I know this. Kyle Shanahan's going to have a better plan in place to at least give San Francisco an opportunity if they can run the football and Deebo Samuel goes nuts and does some things that he can do. He's going to scheme some things to help his team out. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say Dak Prescott is better than Tom Brady. That's not why I said the Eagles match up worse with the Cowboys than the Buccaneers. But I'm also going to say, even in the instance of Tom Brady, the quarterback can't win the football game by himself. Can he help you? Of course he can help you. I think Aaron Rodgers, and I say this all the time, I think Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback I've ever seen in my life, in my career, in my history. I don't think anybody has played the position at a higher level than Aaron Rodgers when he's humming at his optimal level. I say it all the time. He's got 1 Super Bowl championship. You can't win things by yourself. Michael Jordan, how many NBA titles? How many years does he play? You lose more than win at the end. Everybody's unhappy. It's not about one player, even the quarterback. But yes, I'd rather have.
John, let me ask you. What about the Cowboys made you believe that they could be successful in the playoffs this year? Certainly not history.
Successful.
Certainly not no results. Only
Jody,
your personal evaluation of the talent of the roster. Was that what you were basing it on? The Cowboys have proven to be a choking team the last 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 20 some odd years. You want to go back the last time they made the Super Bowl. Yes, I factor that in a great deal. Quarterback is at the top of the list, but then you look at the rest of the team. What Cowboy players ever done anything in the playoffs?
I don't know where you get. I said Cowboys can be successful in the playoffs. I said they were a bad matchup for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Correct.
If I was going to say the Cowboys were playing Tampa Bay, I would pick Tampa Bay. If I were going to say the Cowboys were playing Green Bay, I would pick Green Bay. So I don't know where you're getting. They have a very talented roster. I thought they would beat San Francisco, but I also said, and you can ask Ed Kratz when we have him on the show, I said they're going to have trouble with San Francisco because San Francisco is going to show up with a
harder matchup than the Eagles. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
They're going to have trouble against San Francisco. Should have won the game, and you're right in that aspect. Coaching plays into it. Bad decision plays into it. They're a very undisciplined team. But I've seen this team play the Eagles up close twice, and even the junior varsity, the varsity game.
Yeah, that's irrelevant.
They can't deal with those receivers where the Eagles are right now defensively. And I knew the Cowboys would score 40-plus points against the Eagles, and the Eagles aren't capable of scoring 40 points at this stage with their particular offense. That was my whole mindset. And again, I picked Tampa Bay to win by 11 points, and they probably would have won by 11 points if the Eagles came in with an even competent offensive game plan or somewhere in that nature. I'm not going to say would have nailed the score, but I thought the coaching really impacted their ability to compete in this game even further. But yeah, they had Chris Godwin and Leonard Fournette and Antonio Brown. Yeah, it would have been. You might as well not even have shown up, and you can argue they didn't show up anyway.
No, and coaching was another reason why I thought in a comparison matchup against the Eagles, Tampa Bay or Dallas, I'm going to take Tampa every single time because coaching does matter that much.
Well, they do have a
quarterback is only one of 22 guys on the field. Well, coaching is a pretty big deal too. And when you compare the Tampa coaching staff to the Cowboy coaching staff, not even in the same neighborhood. And that's why the Bucks were absolutely
but even that, I'm not. It is a talent-driven league. I'm not gonna say Buffalo is a better coaching staff than New England. I'm not going to say that. Now, Kansas City, you can say Andy, but Mike Tomlin's very good. But Mike Tomlin isn't certainly a bad coach, and his staff is certainly not doing a bad job. Talent is first and foremost in this league. And
how did the Cowboys get beat on Sunday, John? If they're that talented a roster, if you're saying it's all about the talent, and the Cowboys have that kind of talent, more talent than the Tampa Bay Bucks, how'd they lose that game?
Well, let's start with 14 penalties. Let's start with the stupid play.
Talented players are the ones taking those penalties, right? Are you not factoring that in when you're judging and evaluating the talent of the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, I mean, when you let's talk about the first drive of the Eagles game. Now, again, everybody loses the perspective. Everybody loses the context. We talked about the wind. I think it was the first play was a big run. I think it was 16, 17 yards by Vaughn. And you say, uh-oh, here we go. Then the second play was a short pass to, I think, Gio Bernard that was off target, way off target, which is atypical of Tom Brady. It was a short throw. And And so you're second down and 10, and then I believe that was the Derek Barnett play, which was, and I know people are going to kill Derek Barnett, but let's be honest, that's a Tom Brady reputation play.
Right.
I mean, that's what that was. And you got to be, you can say all you want. You have to be aware of that type of situation, but that's a ticky-tack call. And that was second and 10, Derek Barnett roughing the passer. And all of a sudden that third and 10 where you have, who knows what happens at that point. They could be 4 and out, not 3 and out, because they gave up the first. And then we're having a totally different conversation about the coin toss and all that kind of crap. We've seen NFL officials, and I'm not one to complain about NFL officials. Everybody else is. I never talk about it. But when you get 14 penalties, you get 14 penalties. Nobody's coaching you to get penalties. But that impacts you in a certain game. And then, San Francisco's a good football team. And by the way, they should have won the game far easier until Jimmy tried to give it back. And that gave Dallas some life, and they were able to do some things late. But they didn't play well. That doesn't mean they match up. That doesn't mean the Eagles match up with them. Doesn't mean because
what I'm trying to understand, John, is you seem to have this opinion of Dallas and their talent and their roster and the like, except they only beat the same teams the Eagles beat last year. The only thing they won the same exact number of games.
So
they played the same lousy schedule that the Eagles did. They were woefully overrated coming into the playoffs by you and like everybody else on the planet.
Well, we have to take a break, so we can get more into it after the break, Jody. But I'll just say this before. Just go down the list. Besides Dak Prescott, who you seem to think is a bad quarterback.
Not bad, just pales in comparison to Tom Brady.
Well, who's bad? Who of the names that I tell you are good? The Amari Coopers, the C.D. Lambs, the Cedric Wilsons, the Michael Gallups, who wasn't there, the Tyron Smiths, the Zach Martins, who's going to the Hall of Fame.
Tyron Smith isn't playing. I know he made a Pro Bowl again.
La'el Collins.
He got abused the other day.
La'el Collins, Randy Gregory, DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs. These are bad football players? What, I'm crazy?
I could go through them one by one. And Trayvon Diggs gets a lot of interceptions, but he gave up more yards than anybody in the NFL this year. Overrated. That's my point. That you of all people are going to throw on a pedestal, and I just don't believe they belong there.
You of all people are going to throw Pro Football Focus grades at me when it comes to Trayvon Diggs, who intercepts the football 11 or 12 times and is all pro.
It's the yardage that you give up. You can get that stat anywhere. He gave up more yardage than any player in the National Football League.
They got that stat from Pro Football Focus. And he was voted all pro. And if you talk, and I've talked to Darius Slay about him, Darius Slay is one of the best cornerbacks in football. And I would assume because he's on the Eagles, you'd say he's better. He talks pretty stinking highly of Trayvon Diggs. So if you're going to sit here and say Trayvon Diggs isn't talented.
John, are you going to say I'm making it up, or did he give up more yards, one-on-one coverage, downfield than any other player in the NFL? Am I lying to our listeners?
No, you're not.
Or am I stating a fact? Fact, a statistic that they can well register and follow, and he gave up more yards than anybody else in the league.
Jody, you're taking stats you like and ignoring the rest of the context that he's the biggest big play cornerback in football. And the fact that he was voted all pro. So he's voted all pro by the writers. He's respected by his peers who think he's one of the best cornerbacks in the game. But we're sitting here and having a conversation that Trayvon Diggs isn't talented. Think about that. Think about that.
Did you hear me say he wasn't talented?
Well,
I'll repeat it for you one more time, John. He's overrated. He is the best playmaking defensive back in this. Yes, I'm not trying to take anything away from what he did, but people don't give any accordance to the fact that he gets beat a lot, and he gets beat big, and he gets beat deep, and he gets beat for touchdowns. He gets interceptions because that grabs a lot of headlines. I'm looking at it a more balanced approach. I'm looking at his entire game. I don't think he's the best cornerback in football, although some people put him on that pedestal because he led the
I
league
don't
in
think he's the best
interceptions this year.
cornerback in
I just
football.
don't think that's not my opinion.
I don't think he's the best cornerback in football, but I think he's one of the best cornerbacks in football. And I don't think that's in dispute. But I just listed a demon. Look, if you don't like the Dallas Cowboys, I don't give a shit about the Dallas Cowboys. If you don't like them, fine. If you think they're overrated, fine. I just gave a list of about 15 stinking names, and if you think any of them aren't talented as NFL players,
Well, then
you're
how
wrong.
did this unbelievably talented roster lose to the San Francisco 49ers with 10-7?
But you've never seen an upset in the NFL? Is that what you're going to sit here and say to me?
Oh, I'm looking at continued playoff coming up short with the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, you have a
You
problem
go
with it. You can make a issue with the Dallas Cowboys organization. I'm right behind you. It's a bad organization.
Dallas
They make
Cowboys
bad
organization that we talked about last week and comparing them to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a potential opponent for the Eagles.
We got to go to a break because Sanders got. Is this Birds 365 or Cowboys 365? I don't care about the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think they're a good matchup for
talking about a comparison between who would have been better to play the Eagles. It's not like we're not talking about the Eagles.
That's
the whole
it.
conversation started about the Eagles.
They do not match up well with the Dallas Cowboys. You saw it. Do you think they match up well?
No, they match up poorly against the Dallas
So what
Cowboys.
are we arguing about?
The Dallas Cowboys, I would have given them a chance to win. A chance. They had no chance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's the difference. They had a chance, small chance against the Dallas Cowboys. They had no chance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
They probably had a chance against the Arizona Cardinals. They probably had a minute chance against the LA Rams. They had even lesser chances against Dallas and Tampa Bay. We're arguing about who's one and who's two. The only team they would have had, and guess what? They probably wouldn't have beaten the Cardinals, to be honest. They're not ready from a talent perspective. So, I mean, that's where we are with the Eagles.
We'll come back and talk more about the Eagles here on Birds 365.